Welcome to Dude Rakes, hosted by Marty Coleman. Each week, we'll do a deep dive into Clemson baseball with special guests knowledgeable about Clemson and/or college baseball. It's a casual, laid-back, but fast-paced 15 to 20-minute show. With that, let's get started.
Jason Priester, I just realized I probably lied on that intro about 15 and move on. Hey, the Tigers are 8-0. They've out there scored their opponents 56-18. Army 3 games, Bryant 3 games, Charlotte and Presbyterian. Competition ramps up a little bit this week. Tigers take on South Carolina Friday night in Columbia at Founders Park. Saturday afternoon at Segra Park, and of course Sunday afternoon at Doug Kingsmore Stadium. We talk about Clemson, Jason. I think the first thing, the place we need to start is the pitching staff. Preseason, Eric Bakich promised us 18 to 20 arms who could compete. We've seen 17, and of course Jacob McGovern's hurt. There would be your 18th. Those guys have been phenomenal through the first 8 games.
Yeah, it's hard to ask for much more than what you've gotten from the pitching staff over the first 2 weeks. From the top of the rotation to the bottom, it's been a model of consistency. And we haven't, you mentioned Jacob McGovern being out. He's out for the year. We haven't seen a freshman like Dan Margulies. He began the season a little banged up. Nick Frusco was a guy that got a lot of publicity in the offseason. Working out for the Major League Baseball draft combine or whatever it's called. We haven't seen him. So maybe there's even a couple more guys they could turn to if need be. But man, I was a little leery of that 18 to 20 number myself, because it's been something that's kind of plagued this team over the past few years. It's just the lack of arms. We saw it once they got into the ACC tournament last year. We saw it in regional play. They needed a little bit more depth, and when you take over a head coaching job at a school like Clemson or anywhere for that matter, it's going to take you, a year, 2, 3 years to kind of start building some real quality depth. And I think we're starting to see the fruits of that labor starting to pay off now. You've got some guys that have been there a couple of years, but man, these freshmen have been, the ones we've seen for the most part have been really good. A guy like Dion Brown, who's kind of come up through the program, he was come in as a high school guy. He's been here a couple of years now. He's starting to see development with guys on top of the talented freshman arms. I mean, it's been fun to watch.
Been throwing strikes for the most part. As I just had up on the screen there are 7 pitchers throwing over or more than 70% strikes. One of those pitchers not throwing, let me keep that up. One of those pitchers not throwing 70% strikes is Aiden Canuck, who's going to be the Friday starter. And if anybody hasn't seen this, it's the same rotation we've had the first 2 weekends with Canuck, Sharman, and Bell going Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I feel weird saying this about a guy with a 0.0 ERA and whatever his FIP is, but and I heard Eric Bakich say they're ramping him up. They want to save him for June, hopefully, et cetera, et cetera. A 0.0 ERA. Are my eyes deceiving me, or does he look not quite the same as he looked maybe earlier in his career? I don't know what it is. I know Bakich has been asked several times, and he keeps saying he's fine. We're not worried about him. But are my eyes deceiving me?
No. I'll say what a buddy of mine likes to say. It appears like, he's nibbling. He's nibbling at the plate, instead of coming right at hitters. And his balls are up. His strike percentage is down. His balls are up. He's been walking more guys. This goes back to last season. We've seen it over his first 2 starts this season. And during the freshman season, he didn't walk a lot of guys.
Right.
The walks were up last year. They seem like, over the first 2 games, they're trending to be up, around where they were last year. but I think that's a good term to use. It looks like he's kind of nibbling instead of just coming right at guys. Maybe it's the pitches he added to his repertoire. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't have full command of all of them yet, but he's still got that nasty changeup. But yeah, his your eyes are not deceiving you. He is not his strike percentage is not what it was as a freshman. He seems to be a little bit more around the plate instead of exactly where he wants to be.
Well, thanks for validating that, because I've been holding that for a couple of weeks ever since the first start. And the first start of the season, well, I noticed it a little bit last year, but the first start of the season, I'm watching on a phone in center field at Globe Life Field. So I wasn't sure. Then I saw him pitch last Friday and noticed the same kind of thing. So I do appreciate the validation. But number 2 in that rotation, the transfer from Tennessee, Sharman, has been fantastic. Pinpoint control, just really, really good shot in the arm what the Tigers needed.
I remember talking to him, after he committed out of the portal, and I remember him telling me he was coming to start. He wanted to be a starter. That was a big reason why he came to Clemson, although he wasn't guaranteed to be a starter, but that was his goal. He wanted to come be a starter, man. And so far, he has absolutely looked apart. He has been the best of the 3. He has been a model of consistency. He throws strikes. He's not overpowering. He's got good stuff. He's a left-hander. He's absolutely going to get his biggest test of the season coming up on Saturday there at Segra Park for that, what they call a neutral site game. But, I'm kind of anxious to see how he performs when he takes when the opponent takes a step up in competition. I am anxious to see that, but he's been phenomenal so far. I think his ERA is 0.88. I think he gave up the 1 run Saturday, and that's been it. He was almost perfect in his first start. I think he ended up allowing 1 hit, like in his last inning or next to last inning, but he was perfect through like 4 or 5 innings or something like that. If he has that kind of stuff on Saturday, I feel good about Clemson's chances that day.
Well, I don't even think he was on the mound when he gave up that run. I think somebody in the bullpen gave up a hit, and it might have been Danny Nelson. I can't remember, but
and I'll add this: it's going to be him versus Ant Phillips Saturday. Ant Phillips has been South Carolina's best starter. His ERA is like 1.35 or something like that.
Yeah.
That ought to be a dandy.
Maybe not a lot of runs, at least early on Saturday, but on Sunday, Talon Bell goes, and really hasn't lasted very long. And I know, again, Eric Backage is ramping these guys up, wants them to have bullets. Bell's coming off an injury a couple of years ago. Really haven't seen a lot from Talon Bell so far. It's only been 2 starts, but less than the other guys.
He also broke a thumb over Christmas break that kept him from, being fully ramped up for the season. That's why he's been on a pitch count and has only pitched 5 innings. I would expect we'll see this Sunday what we saw last Sunday, a combination of Bell and Titsworth. That would be my guess anyways, because Titsworth's kind of coming off a little bit of a strain and they're kind of slowly amping him up. But at some point, once all these guys get fully ramped up, as Backus likes to say, there's kind of going to be 3 spots for 4 guys in that weekend rotation. Somebody's going to be the odd man out unless you just absolutely want Titsworth in the bullpen. You have to decide whether you want 2 lefties in the rotation. You've already lost 1 lefty out of that bullpen. Maybe you want to pull a guy like Talon Bell and put him in the bullpen and replace him with Titsworth. So we'll see what happens when we get to that point. But, we just not seen a lot of Bell yet, particularly a fully healthy Bell, because he was always kind of amping back up last year coming off the Tommy John. He was on a pitch count for pretty much the entire season, and he's been on one to start this season. I'm kind of curious to see what he looks like, fully 100% Talon Bell. And unfortunate for him, we've just not seen it yet. I mean, nothing that he did, nothing that his fault or anything. We just haven't been able to see it yet. Hopefully, by the time we get into ACC play, at least early in ACC play, he'll be there and we'll be able to see it.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what we've seen out of the bullpen. I posted those strike percents on Twitter, And one of the responses I got was, so Justin Legurnick is throwing 95 and 70% strikes. What a start to the season for that guy out of the bullpen. And even Dvorsky with a negative FIP. Now, it's only been a couple of appearances. We're not talking, we're not in the middle of May here. But, boy, you couldn't ask for a better start from these guys out of the bullpen. You got guys like Danny Nelson, who I'd never heard of until that first appearance. He just had two really good appearances. He gave up a hard hit ball and came right back and closed it out that game. And you got Joe Allen on the back end. The bullpen has been fantastic also.
I'm going to have to send you a tweet I sent out, I think in October, about Danny Allen. I mean, about Danny Nelson, telling everybody this is the freshman to watch for. I think I retweeted it the other day, man, but he looked phenomenal in the ball. But yeah, the bullpen has been outstanding, just as good as the starting pitchers have been. Can't say enough about Legurnick. The thing, but he's always had the stuff, and we've seen him hit 96, 97, at times in his first two appearances this year. So the velo's up. Now he's just got to stack appearances, right? He's got to put several together, in succession. Can't be up, down, 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 up, down, down, down. He had that outstanding out. He had a couple outstanding outings early last year, if I'm remembering right. One was in Columbia against South Carolina, and that win, and that's kind of when the wheels started to fall off for him. But if he can stay consistent, man, he's going to be a big part of things. And I've been just as impressed with Joe Allen. I know he kind of battled a little bit over in that appearance. What was it, Sunday? Whichever day he pitched on over the weekend.
Twice he pitched Friday and Sunday.
The Sunday, the one I'm talking about Sunday. But he got out of it. I think if he'd allowed one more base runner, they were going to, take him out. But he ended up getting out of it. And in the past, if he gives up a hit or walks a guy, that's kind of when things start to go wrong for him. And that didn't happen Sunday, excuse me. He kind of battled back and came back and, after he allowed a base runner or two, I forget how many it was off the top of my head, but he came back and got out of the jam and saved it. But he's going to have to continue to do that. If he can get his walks down and stay on top of things when he allows a hit here and there, because he's not going to be perfect every outing. He's going to be a big part of things too. And every time, Bakich is asked about the closer, Joe Allen's one of the first names mentioned. So
that leads right into my question I was going to ask you. There really hasn't been – I was thinking to myself, there hasn't been certainly not a closer named, but really didn't feel like there was one. Then I went back and looked, and game one, it was Joe Allen when they needed somebody to finish off that 3-2 win over Army. And then, as you mentioned, Sunday, it was Joe Allen when it got a little too close for comfort there at the end. So I guess what you're saying is he hasn't been named the closer, but he is mentioned first and frequently when Bakich is asked about the closer role.
Yeah, I actually asked Bakich Tuesday night. I think it was either Tuesday or Sunday, and the games are starting to run together. If he would if they would be fine with going with a closer by committee or maybe wanting somebody to separate themselves. He didn't really give a specific answer, but Joe Allen was one of the first names mentioned. I think it was the first name mentioned. And like you just said, we've already seen it, outside of them using Danny Nelson, to come in and get the save that opening weekend. It's been Joe Allen late when they needed a guy.
All right, let's talk about the guys at the plate a little bit here. And, there are several guys we could mention right off the top. So Nate Savoy jumps out. Jacob Gerald's shown a lot of power early. McClatty is doing McClatty stuff, just always seems to find his way on base, hitting the ball. I mentioned Jack Crichton the other day as someone you kind of look at his name in the line. Then this happened to me in high school. This is why resonates with me. You kind of look at him, you go, we really need to replace this guy. There's we need something else. And you look up and the guy's batting 450 or something, right? So they have
400.
They have several guys. They have several guys really hot to start with. And Savoy seems to be the leader of the group. And I don't mean that as a team captain or anything, but just leading the offense production wise.
Yeah, Savoy's been really good. He kind of came back down to earth a little bit. Obviously, he wasn't going to hit 700 all year long, but he's at 467. Gaffney's at 464. McClatty's at 400. Creighton's at 400. Purify's at 367. They've got guys that have gotten off to hot starts. They're averaging like just under 8 runs a game, if I'm not mistaken, and that's without Ty Daly really getting it going yet. He's still hitting 222. Lichtenberger's only hitting 200. Clavon's only hitting 150. If you can get those guys going, man, this lineup's going to be dangerous. Savoy's been everything I thought he would be. I figured he was going to be a big bat in the middle of that lineup. Gaffney's the one that is really stood out to me. After the struggles he experienced, I over the back third of last season, ended up not even playing much in the ACC tournament or in the regional. He was a guy, you just looked at his body language, he just looked like he had lost all confidence. But, man, he has gotten off to a fantastic start. He's one of those guys he's hitting 464. He's already got 7 RBIs. And you mentioned Creighton. He doesn't get talked about a lot. But, I mean, he's the guy, like we just said, he's batting 400. He's got 10 hits, 3 doubles, 5 RBIs. He's slugging 520, and his own base is 483. I mean, I don't know if you can ask for much more than that, man. He's never going to be a 10 home run, 15 home run guy.
Right.
But he is doing exactly what they need him to do out there in that left field spot on the days he's out there.
You need those kind of guys in the lineup, right? Not everybody, as you mentioned, is going to hit 10 or 15 home runs. And oftentimes, there's old baseball saying that sometimes home runs kill rallies, right? And you need those guys just getting on base, creating havoc, running the bases, and causing problems that way. You mentioned Ty Daly's not off to a great start. The other one that's not off to a great start, Lichtenberger, but I don't know how much we expected offensively out of him. But Jason Fultz Jr. is someone we talked about preseason, someone Bakich has praised for firing his bat through the zone, and it hasn't worked out. He's gotten a few hits, but he hasn't shown the power that I think I was expecting from Bakich's. When I hear somebody firing the bat through the zone repeatedly, I get stars in my eyes, right? It hasn't worked out yet, but again, it's still early. It just hasn't worked out for him yet.
That's what I would say. It's still early. He's only had 14 at bats. I thought he had a big one the other night when he came up with the bases loaded. Didn't get a hit, but he showed some really good plate discipline for a freshman and worked a walk and drove in a run that way. But I remember him back in the fall, man. When he hits the ball, man, and he hits it right, it's a different kind of ping coming off of that bat. So he's definitely got some pop. I figure he just needs the opportunities. If he can get a little bit more opportunities, he'll probably get it going again. He's only had 14 at bats, and maybe it ends up being he doesn't really make that much of a contribution to him next year. We'll see, especially with the way McClatty's been playing. It's hard to take him out of the lineup. I remember when they set Clavon down and let Fultz play whatever day that was. I remember Bakich saying after the game, it was just Clavon's turn to sit down. They're trying to work everybody in. But at some point, you're going to get more consistent with your 9 guys every day, 9 or 10. And maybe Fultz ends up being the odd man out on a lot of days, but we'll see. But that's a guy I think is going to be, if it's not this year, man, next year, man, I think he's going to be really good. Or if, say, McClatty, we've seen him go into slumps before or have a couple of, mental lapses where he gets picked off or can't get a bunt down and he gets sit down for a little bit. And if something like that happens and Fultz gets in there a little bit more consistently, but if it's not this year, I'd certainly expect it to be next year. But the fact that he's not playing just kind of leads credence to how good this lineup's been. I'm like you. I don't know how much I was expecting offensively from Lichtenberger. As long as he's giving you good defense over there at shortstop, man, he's doing everything you need him to do. I was expecting a little bit more offensively from Clavon. He's made a couple of really good plays out there in center. And those are big shoes out there to fill when you're replacing Cam
No.
Canarella, but I would certainly expect him to get it going at some point. And, batting 150 is not what I would have expected of him coming into the season.
Well, one other possibility I see is McClatchy is so versatile, right? He can play just about anywhere on the infield and the outfield for that matter. So if there's somebody else is slumping and McClatchy goes into that spot, that may open up something for Fultz, or hopefully not, but it could be an injury, could lead, McClatchy to another position and Fultz stepping in at third. You mentioned something that reminded me another question I wanted to ask. He talked about, he being Eric Bakich, 10 to 12 bats that we're going to see time. We have not seen that. We've seen 10 bats and a couple of defensive replacements that haven't batted. Doesn't sound very deep for a college baseball team to have 10 guys that have all the at-bats through 8 games. Again, small sample size. We're 15% of the way through the regular season. Things are going to happen. Scores are going to get out of hand either way sometimes. But not very deep on the offensive end. They've been very good so far. They just haven't been very deep.
Yeah, and I imagine that when he says 12, he's probably including Colin Priest in that, who's going to be out for a while. I don't know who the 12th guy is, not right off the top of my head anyways. I'm trying to think, and I can't think of who it is. I mean, I know he likes Jay Dillard, but I don't know that he's one of your 12 best hitters. He's definitely a guy you can put in late as a defensive replacement at second or something like that. He's generally pretty good defensively. Doesn't have the range as Purify, but he's solid over there. Probably need to stay healthy. If you start losing a guy, or if you lose a guy or two out of those 10 that we've seen so far, you might find yourself in trouble. I kind of figured we'd see, maybe another guy or two have an opportunity before the South Carolina series, but we haven't. It looks like this is a 10 they have, at least until Priest gets back.
Yeah, Dillard was the guy I was thinking about. I couldn't think of his name when I was speaking, but he's been in a couple of games defensively and hasn't had an at-bat yet. But that is it. You mentioned the defense. What do you think about the defense so far? I heard Eric Bakich talking earlier, and he said, you can't even look at the fielding percentage. He's not worried about that. Couple of the errors were basically errors of guys trying to make difficult plays. He says there's only been really 2. I think he said 2 errors that were ugly, that's my term, not his. That were really bad errors, and they only count 2 errors. They've been pretty good. I've seen a couple of throws from McClatchy early on. I think he's been pretty good lately, but early there were a couple of throws, like in the first Army game, I believe. And Cleavon missed one out in center, but he's caught everything else. What do we think about the defense so far?
If there's one area that can still be improved a little bit, I think that's where it is. I understand what he says, where there's only been a couple of silly ones, but there's been some other ones where they should have made those plays. The fly ball, in shallow right field that Gaffney missed. Probably should have had the second baseman or right fielder call him off and get that one themselves. That's a play you got to make. There's been a couple of probably booted balls on the infield, the plays they've got to make. But these are all guys, I would expect the defense to get better as we get deeper into the season and these guys play more together. Most of them outside of, you got a new shortstop over there, which can kind of throw a wrinkle into some things until you all – I kind of equate it to offensive line having to gel. You need to get that infield gelled. I think it'll get better, but there definitely can be room for improvement. I mean, they've made 11 errors so far, and there's probably been 1 or 2 other ones that they, probably you can make the argument they should have been charged in error. But that Purify's got 3 already, if I'm not mistaken. I think at least 2 of them's been on bad throws. I think Gaffney's got 3. Let's see, Gaffney's got 3. McClatchy's got 2. Purify's got 3. and Clavon's got 2. You definitely want to get that stuff cleaned up on the infield, man. I think Clavon's been pretty good out there in center. I'm not too worried about his defense. One of those errors was on a ball, man, that he probably looked like he misread it off the bat a little bit, got slowed up on it. But the infield's where you want to see it cleaned up some for sure, man. That's 11 errors through 8 games is probably a tad higher than you want it to be. I think the fielding percentage is, matter of fact, I got it right here. I can tell you exactly what it is. It's 960. I think you want that a little bit higher than that.
Yeah. I always say, I've said this for years, is the most important position on defense in college baseball is first base because of the throws, right? And you've just mentioned it. The errors have not, for the most part, on the infield, the errors have not been balls missed or dropped. They've been throws to first base. And I'm a firm believer that you need a first baseman who can scoop. And Gaffney's, with the error side, that was on a pop-up. He's pretty good.
Yeah, he is.
Keeping the ball and scooping the balls over at first base.
I'll also add it was very windy that day, extremely windy.
Yeah, he looked pretty unsure of himself. So, yeah, I thought maybe some wind was going on. I watched some South Carolina last night. Now, I don't live in the state of South Carolina any longer. You do. I have not seen South Carolina. I've seen their scores. Have you seen anything of the Gamecocks?
No, I didn't even get to watch any last night because I was driving home. It was ending and when I got home, so I didn't get to see any of it. I kept up with the score. I remember it was 8-1 or 9-1 at some point, and they came back and pulled within a run. But no, I unless I go back and watch the replay, man, I just don't get to watch any South Carolina baseball because they're usually playing at the same time as Clemson. So,
well, Krieg's 21 says South Carolina is only 967 fielding, so not much better, and their team stats are actually better than our Tigers. So it was hard for me to tell.
967.
Yeah. So it was hard for me to tell, from watching 3 or 4 innings last night. Obviously, they got good players. It's South Carolina. They got SEC money and a traditionally power baseball team. They've got 3 losses, one of them to Army. Army almost beat Clemson in the opener. So, we think Army's a decent baseball team. But the other 2 was at Northern Kentucky and, of course, last night to Queens, who it was their first Power 4 win ever, and I don't know how long they've been a school. That can happen in college baseball, right? We've seen it as Clemson fans, right? We've seen those weekday losses. That's why you need 17 arms, by the way. So that's less likely to happen.
Hey, let's also add in that Army loss. Army didn't throw their Friday guy in that game. They threw a bullpen game.
And they still won. Okay. Yep. Getting new information here. That's pretty cool. I don't have any idea how good South Carolina is. But I do know they're generally good players. And I don't know. A lot of Clemson fans are expecting a sweep this weekend. Really hard to do. This would be the 3rd weekend in a row. We talked about the Saturday matchup, but that could be a pitcher's duel, at least in theory. And Sunday, we talked about Talon Bell and the issues that he's having. I'm not seeing a sweep. I don't know about you. I'll be happy with 2 out of 3.
Yeah, same here. It'll be difficult to sweep, man. Is it impossible? Absolutely not. I think this team's good enough to sweep. But I think South Carolina is probably a little bit better than people are giving them credit for. We saw Amp Phillips last year when he was with USC Upstate. He will not be an easy guy to beat. They are the guy that's starting Friday night for South Carolina, Josh Gunther. He has not started a game all season. He's had 2 appearances, but he's not made a start. He's thrown 8 innings. He struck out 10, but he's given up 7 earned runs on 9 hits. He's got a 7.88 ERA. So I mean, he's kind of had a little bit of a rough go of it to start the season. But there are other 2 starters. Again, Phillips, he's coming in with a 1.86 ERA. And the other guy is Riley Goodman. And I lost it. I had it right here. He's coming in with a 3.68 ERA. Both those guys have started each they both made starts each of the first 2 weekends. So those 2 of their starters have been, fairly good, particularly Phillips. He's been exceptional. I don't think this, all that to say, I don't think this is going to be the easy 1-2-3 sweep that maybe some Clemson fans are kind of assuming it will be. And there's, we all remember the Monty philosophy, right? It's play for the big inning. It's kind of station to station, waiting on the big hit and putting up the crooked number. But there's some guys on that on that team that can hit the long ball and can change the complexion of the game with one swing of the bat. Thomas LaCroix is still around, and Clemson fans should be fairly well acquainted with that name. So I mean, I don't think this is going to be easy as some people might think. Now, if you go in there and win Friday, we'll see what happens. But that would be my thing. I would think Clemson needs to take 2 out of 3. I don't think if they go in there and don't sweep, all of a sudden that means something's wrong with Clemson, man. You want to take 2 out of 3. That's the goal. Sweeping, if you get that third one, that's just the cherry on top.
Thomas LaCroix, what is he, like a 15th-year senior? Or what the heck, man? That guy, he is he's a baller, man. That guy is something else.
And he's hitting 471.
Begrudgingly respect. The last year he's batting like 150 or something. I don't know what he's slightly improved over the years. Yeah, I'd certainly be happy with 2 out of 3. I put the same thing in my article today. I was saying that, this is not football where you can just out physical the other team, right? This is not Clemson and Wake Forest in football or even basketball where you got a couple of huge guys that are physical. A lot of baseball is between the ears. And like you said, if they can win Friday night in Columbia, I mean, that obviously, hey, genius. That's the key to the series, right? Winning on the road and then playing neutral, as you said, and in Clemson on Sunday. It's going to be a really interesting series, I think. I think the Clemson fans' expectations may be a little higher than they should be, but I guess we'll see come tomorrow, Saturday, and Sunday. You got anything?
When you've won 5 straight and swept 2 years in a row, albeit the year before last it was a 2-game sweep, because one got canceled.
Yeah,
that kind of leads to those high expectations. Back has dropped 2 out of 3 his first season, but he's not lost to them since. So I mean, that kind of, that kind of impacts the way some people view things. But I'm with you, man. I think it's 2 out of 3, and anything on top of that, man, is just icing on the cake.
Absolutely. I would take 2 out of 3. I don't care if they win in Segra Park in Columbia and can't get it done on Sunday. Just give me the series win. It's baseball. Anybody can and they're good players. I mean, this is not, they didn't play well. They haven't played well so far. But I heard Maneri say today that he likes this team more than the team he had last year that was undefeated coming into the Clemson series. That kind of perks my ears up a little bit, that maybe they're better than they've played so far, and maybe they hope to show it this weekend. So
maybe they've kind of they've not been. Again, now I've not gotten to watch them, but
right.
Just kind of looking at the numbers outside of LaCroix and KJ Scobie, who's hitting 341, they've not been, tearing it up at the plate. Patrick Evans is only hitting 280. Lozano's hitting 259. Tyler Bach or however you say his last name, is hitting 243. Harmon's hitting 240. So, I mean, they haven't gotten off to the greatest of starts, some of these guys at the plate. Sutter's hitting 294. Rollins 217. But they have hit 13 home runs. Again, they've got some guys that can change the game with one swing at a bat. LaCroix's hit 2, Scobie's hit 2, Bach's hit 2. So they've got some guys that can go deep. It's going to be interesting to see because I'm with you, man. I don't know if they're better than what they were last year, but I do think they're better than they've played to start this season.
All right, fair enough. And Casey says Craddock is a name to watch.
Craddock. I take Casey's word for it. That guy's as knowledgeable as anybody. He is 500 start the season, 9 of 18. He's got 2 home runs too.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
He's slugging over 1,000 at the moment.
That is pretty good. Anything else, JP, on Clemson, Carolina, or Clemson in general?
I think we hit it on it all.
I think we did pretty good for 35 minutes of talking Clemson, Carolina. Man, a lot of fun, a lot of folks watching, at least for this show. And I want to say this will be up on, it's live on Facebook and the Seldom News Observer YouTube, and of course on Twitter. Go get the replays. I'll do the clips after the show. Find them on Twitter and Facebook. JP, thanks again for filling in for me tonight. I needed you. I knew who I could call when I need somebody to talk baseball.
Anytime, my friend.
All right. Have a good evening.